Oh, come on! Are you kidding me? Fuck you! Yeah, and I broke my controller. Great. Alright, deep breath. We got this. Oh, this game is just so fun. I love dying! Well, what do we have here? It would appear the tables have turned. Maybe this is the strategy. You're supposed to just die so many times that he'll eventually get glitched into the wall and you cheap him out. What? He's loose! He got free! Get out, get out, get out, get out. Oh my god, he's so angry. Yes! Holy shit, I did it! That's right! Bow to your sensei! That's it. He's dead forever. Yes, welcome to Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, From Software's latest game that in a year that has been packed with stellar releases is sure to go down as one of the best of 2019. This is not just another Souls game. It brings so much needed diversity to the gameplay of these titles, with a much more fast-paced, action-y style, being able to zip around rooftops and up mountains with your grappling hook hand. The posture system, man, did they kill it with that. If you're unfamiliar, you have a meter that builds for both the player and enemies whenever you get hit, block an attack, or even hit the other person's sword and they block. And whenever this meter is filled up, that character will be staggered, leaving them wide open for a brutal attack. It makes fights much more fun and engaging. You're not just smashing endlessly or dodging until you see an opening. You actually have to create that opening with a mixture of offense and defense to get to a fatal blow, which always feels so satisfying. The only major thing I missed from the other Souls games is the gearing. You don't really have many options in terms of different weapons, main weapons, I should say, or any armor sets. That's one of the things that made me want to explore these worlds more, tracking down different gear sets, but there is still a fair amount of customization in terms of the way you progress through the game. That mechanical arm I mentioned earlier has various gadgets you can install into it, and you can upgrade those, and they can give you a major advantage in combat. Don't sleep on the firecrackers, boys, I'm telling you. Things like the axes, shurikens, and spears may seem cooler, but the firecrackers just work wonders on screwing over a lot of enemies, especially a lot of the bosses. You also have skills you unlock by leveling up and can choose to specialize in ones that better suit your playstyle. They can be as simple as having quieter movement. Sneaking around and being stealthy is actually a pretty big part of this game, as obviously, stealth killing guys means you don't have to waste time and resources on fighting them, but many of the mini-bosses in the game can actually be stealth attacked, which will often result in like a 50% health reduction. If you're familiar with the Souls games, you know how tough boss fights can be, so getting that big of a leg up on a boss is always worth it. And you can also unlock skills that are as badass as raising the dead. Myself personally, I love any time a game gives you like a necromancer type ability where you can kill enemies and then resurrect them and they fight for you. Again, with the sword combat being so intense, it's great rolling into an area with like your own little squad and having like full-on battles. There are some other things that I do prefer with other Souls games. Prefer is probably the key word, though. Not necessarily saying they're better. I think part of my problem is I'm actually just such a huge fanboy of the aesthetic of Bloodborne. The Victorian Gothic setting, the S-tier enemy design. I seriously love the look of just about every single enemy, every character in Bloodborne. So I do like that personally over the feudal Japan route of this game. But that's really, again, it's just going to come down to preference, because the world and enemies are just as well designed. Some of the bosses in Sekiro actually are some of my favorites of any of these games. The boss fights are just so fantastic, again, thanks to that posture system, especially with the giant bosses. You can deflect the majority of their attacks, wreak havoc on their posture, and create your own openings. I'm going to keep reinforcing that. That's why this combat is just so good. It's not just getting down the pattern and then waiting for the pause for you to go in, you're throwing them off balance and creating your opening. It can be really tough to get down, but you feel like such a badass when you pull off a series of deflects against, a massive boss and create that opportunity to get in and inflict a lot of damage. And in line with other Souls games, this title is, of course, very tough. Just because you have the ability to style on a boss doesn't mean it will always happen or even happen often. I will say this game is perhaps a bit more welcoming to newcomers, though. I think the combat is just different from other Souls games, maybe a bit tougher on your reaction times, but overall, Sekiro isn't as cryptic overall with the game design. It's more straightforward. Still a lot of mystery and lore for you to uncover, as you'd come to expect with these games, but figuring out what's going on and where to go isn't as confusing. And also the idols, this game's bonfires, which are where you can heal, stock up on supplies, level up, travel to any other idols you visited, all that good stuff. They're a beacon of hope, providing you a moment of relief, and they're very abundant in this one. So even if you're stuck in an area, like on a boss or something, you likely won't be losing too much progress each time you die, since there's almost always one nearby. And since I'm talking about the difficulty, let's address the, I guess controversy with it. I feel like we have to do this every damn time a game comes out that is notably difficult. The crybaby journalists come out of the woodwork. I can't beat it. It needs an easy mode so everyone can experience it. I know we've done the same rigmarole with other Souls games. I remember addressing it with Cuphead. Oh, can't I just appreciate the game's gorgeous art without the challenge? No, you can appreciate the first level, okay, a couple dozen times. Then you can appreciate the second one, and so on. Anyone who plays these games knows that the trial and error, being beaten down, cursing the mechanics, screaming at your TV about how you totally blocked that attack, is all part of the experience. The marketing even, like on the Souls games, prepare to die. That's a draw of these titles, a big reason they sell so well. And it's also integral to the game design. When you're asking for something like an easy mode in a game like Sekiro, you're fundamentally changing the game. Everything about the game, the stress of the fights, the way leveling and skill acquisitions work, losing your money and XP on death, the immense satisfaction you get from defeating the bosses. Without the difficulty, none of these aspects really work. And I'm not saying all games need to be like this. There's nothing wrong with offering an easy mode in your game, but it's just not something that exists in the Souls games, and it ensures that everyone puts in the work to succeed. Beating these games is kind of like what it was like beating games in the NES days. Yes, nowadays most games can be completed without much struggle, but back then, beating a lot of games meant you were extremely skilled at them because you couldn't beat them otherwise. It's not elitist, it's just wanting to work for something, appreciating when others put in the work, rather than having it handed to everyone. And if you ask me, we need more of that in modern games, not less. But let me cut my game's difficulty rant and go back to praising Sekiro. This really feels like an evolution of the Souls genre. It's definitely going to be hard for me to go back to the combat of the other games if they don't similarly evolve with the sequels. Not saying that Dark Souls and Bloodborne games need to play just like this, but I think with how good the combat feels in this, they need to step up their game with it. Some of you may be looking at the gameplay bits and thinking it still looks very similar gameplay-wise to the other Souls games, but trust me, you gotta play it yourself to experience how different it actually feels. Way different, way better. The only real major complaint I have about the game, honestly, is the performance issues it seems to have on the console versions. I've heard great things about the game on PC, but I played it on Xbox One, on my Xbox One X, actually, and there were still many moments where I ran into frame rate issues, some more severe than others, but when you're trying to execute such precise timing with your attacks and your blocks, it can be a pain in the ass getting wrecked by a frame rate dip. If you're looking for something to blame your failures on, though, it does make a nice scapegoat, so even when you are dying because you just suck at the game, you can still blame the frame rate, which is nice. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I can't recommend this game enough, even to newcomers of the Souls games. It's got the frequent checkpoints, also a pretty robust tutorial system. There's this undead guy you encounter very early on in the game, and he kind of acts as a training dummy, and you can learn about deflecting and doing different counters and stuff. So if you are a bit of a newbie, don't skip out on that. learn how to execute all those different abilities and get the timing down, and you'll be well on your way. And I promise, as frustrating as the deaths can get, when you do succeed, it feels better than just about any other game you can play. And with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on Sekiro Shadows Die Twice in the comments. Are you currently playing the game? And how do you feel it stacks up to other Souls games? Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion on Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Twitter, @JohnnyZakari, and join my Discord, ChiGuy and Friends. Link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.